Robert, welcome back.
Thank you. Welcome back. Thank you.
Yes, Robert, welcome back. It is so great to be here with you again. I would love to know, what are we doing here?
Yes, the heavy hitting questions right out the gate.
The heavy hitting questions right out the gate. Let's get straight into it. No dilly-dallying here.
Yes. What are we doing here? We're doing roof philosophy. Does that answer your question?
I know what roof philosophy is. Why don't you tell our viewers what it is?
Oh, yes. Well, roof philosophy is an evolving concept. So I think one of the things we're here to do is figure out what exactly we're doing with it. But I know, as we've talked about time and time again, because it turns out we talk to each other more than just during this podcast.
Yes, we
One of the
do.
things we've talked about is our resolution going into 2025 for the business, for RAES side of things, is to double down on the human side. So this is inspired by that. And we're kind of just figuring out what exactly it's going to look like. But we've got some good ideas. I think it's really inspired by the folks that I grew up with in roofing. So my family, a lot of my friends, folks that I've just worked with. And then over the last year, in particular, we've talked with so many different folks across the country, in Canada, and you just hear so many different perspectives. And there's a way in which, especially a business like ours that services roofing companies, you start to see roofers as like this category. And they have, in the software world, we call it an ideal client profile. It's like, what are these people like? And it's very abstract and very like divorced from reality. And you just start looking at roofers as, they are these types of people. And my experience has been anything but. I think that there's an incredible diversity of perspective. And I think that, especially because it's a blue collar trade, there's this perception that folks in those types of jobs, working in those types of industries, aren't really interested in higher level thinking concepts, and which is just such bogus. Like some of the most curious people I know are folks who work at roofing companies. And so I really think what I'm trying to do here is create a space for folks to explore ideas. Some of them will be business related, some of them will be about how to run a better business, but also some of them will just be about why we're out here doing this madness that is climbing up on roofs, fighting insurance companies, taking on massive liability. Like there's more to it than just, well, it's a living.
Right, right. I love that. And I'm so glad you said that. I could not have said it better than that. And to go back to what you said, people think about roofers. The reality is they are the feet on the ground, and if grand ideas are to come about, it's from those that are doing the work day in, day out. And I mean, you've had firsthand experience with that, especially coming from, like you said, your family owns five roofing companies. You understand that that's how the big ideas are formed, from the people actually doing the work. And so to create a space, like you're saying, to sort of support and serve that side of the house that people tend to overlook, and maybe that's not the right way to say it, but I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think I'll also say this, a lot of other folks who are creating content like this, whether it's podcasting or just social media content that's aimed at roofers, like it's just like, I'm going to be completely honest, it's kind of boring. I know. And it's just kind of thinly veiled attempts to like really get you interested in buying their products.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, people come across this and like, oh, this is interesting. Let me look into it, and we get clients from it. Yeah, no arguments there. But I'm really doing this in large part just because I want to, and I think it's fun, and it's a nice break from the toils of building business infrastructure for roofers and doing the consulting and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm just excited to just kind of have fun with it. And I think it's going to be really interesting. A lot of it is going to come from what I'm hearing from folks that we're working with. So it's just trying to give a voice to the natural curiosity, the interests, and different ideas that I come across as I talk to roofers all over the place.
Like you said, no shame in others wanting to sort of make their pitch via a podcast platform or any platform, whatever it may be. Like we're all in business for something. But I think people will find joy and fun and just a little bit of a break from the standard monotony of a role, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it might sneak its way in. We might end up talking a little bit about sales, production handoffs,
Sure.
win rates on shingles, but I don't know, not too much, I hope.
Oh, darn. I was really looking forward to win rates on shingles. Say that 10 times fast. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Win rates on shingles.
I think it's actually win rating too, so I'm not even saying it right, but
My gosh. I love that. Um, well, that's wonderful, Robert. I would love to know sort of, what is the first thing that comes to mind? You've kind of given us like, okay, roof philosophy is this evolving being that we'd like to, you know, investigate. We're going to see where it takes us and we're going to go with the flow. And we hope that our viewers and listeners enjoy the ride, come along for and enjoy the ride. But, when you think about maybe the first idea or the first thing that you like is on your mind
yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to roof philosophy this year, what's on your mind, Robert?
So I think that this is kind of a safe route, which I kind of hate, but I still think it's interesting. So one of the things that I've had the pleasure of picking up as I do this and talk to a lot of folks is sometimes I get really great book recommendations. And so there's one in particular that I've been listening to. I'm actually on my second listen through on Spotify as an audiobook. And if I'm being honest, it has really kind of transformed my entire life. Like, I'm not selling it short. Like, I've really leaned in, and within, I would say, like the last 6 weeks, like things are just happening where wins are just kind of stacking, and it's been eerie. So, I attribute a lot of it to this book. So, I'm thinking one of the things is I love to spread the wealth in terms of the intellectual wealth, if you will. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the book and some of the cool ideas that have impacted me. And I think that there's so many opportunities for it to apply to a lot of the situations, a lot of the typical situations that we're observing for owners and for leaders at roofing companies. So I think it'll be relevant.
Yes, and I'm excited about this because you have been talking about this book for I think 2 weeks now. It's been in a minute, and I know like there's been plenty of pieces that just apply to even our business day to day, and it has really helped you sort of like be in and embrace certain mindsets to like just contribute to our success and our team. So I'm excited for this topic. Yes.
And I'll say, even the fact that we're doing this is in large part a result of the book. I guess we should reveal what the book is. We just keep talking about it like it's this weird, mysterious thing, like the thing from oh shoot, Magic Eye is gonna have to cut this one. What's that movie with the three witches that everyone loves at Halloween time?
Hocus pocus?
Hocus Pocus. You know they got the book with the eye in the middle.
Robert, I'm gonna
I
keep
know.
that in there so I can prove I was right about something.
Yeah, my historical references are all gnarly and violent, and yours are Hocus Pocus.
Focus! Pokemon!
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out too, because this is actually one of my consulting clients who recommended this book to me. And if I'm being honest, I probably never would have picked it up just going off of the title, but I was thinking, well, if he's listening to it, I should probably listen to it too, just to kind of see where his mind is at. And I could not have expected that it was going to have as big of an impact on me, not just in my business life, but also my personal life, as quickly as it has. So I want to give a shout out to Justin Matthews at Alpha and Omega Construction, based out of Salem, Illinois. He's got an operation in Alabama too. And we're working together to make some big things happen for them this year. But the book that he recommended is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. It is written by Ben Hardy, Dr. Ben Hardy, but it's actually a collection of ideas and principles from a business coach named Dan Sullivan. Funny enough, I'm also listening now already to a second book by them. That's how amazing these books have been for me, and how powerful I think they've been for just some of the things that I've been struggling with as a business owner for the last couple of years. They've really helped me break through. So
Yes, shout out to Justin Matthews. There we go. Love that. Because, first of all, I just have to say that too, I think, and I'm guilty of it. Someone will recommend a book to me and they'll be like, this is life changing. It's amazing. And then you're like, okay, cool. Let me add that to my TBR, or wait, TBR,
to
books
be
to
read.
read. And then do you ever get around to it? No. But the fact that you actually did is fantastic. And, you're capturing meaningful, things that are applying to not just business, which they have. I want you to go over some of those things, because there have been many like, Brandy, this, and it stems from this book. There have been plenty of those these past couple of weeks. So I want you to go into some of that. But
Yeah, I'm
to
pretty sure the
Rashad,
whole team knows the name of the book by now. I actually just recommended it to Rashad this morning too, a particular chapter. He's like, all right, I'm definitely going to add that to my list. So we're going to check in with him. We're going to see. Rashad's the newest member of our team. And, you know, I'm very excited about having him on our team, and he's
yeah.
really enjoys learning. We'll see though. We'll see if he follows through.
Yeah, Rashad's amazing. He will. I bet you anything he will. And once he's up and running, I know like he's going to be a fan favorite of ours. But man, for how many times you're recommending this book, we need to get some. Can we get a
Yes.
referral fee going with this author? How can we get confidence? I'm just kidding.
This is okay. So this is a bit of a goal that I have set, is at some point to be able to invite Dan Sullivan on.
I mean,
He's a
why
little bit
not?
up there in years, so we don't have a ton of time. And also, he very much protects his time. It's one of his biggest principles. So we'll have to really, get some traction here for him to, I think, buy into that idea. It's all about, really, the book is all about setting ambitious goals, and how, kind of paradoxically, it's easier to achieve big goals than small goals. So that's the whole idea of 10x is easier than 2x, is if you want to make progress, if you feel stuck, if you feel stagnant in your business or life, kind of think bigger. There's this great passage in there about a seminar, and the person leading the seminar asked, if you wanted to increase your profits by 10% next year, what would you do? And I believe it was a statistician, some very smart person stood up and said, actually, that's a horrible question, which is audacious just to do to that man's seminar. Um, he said, it's actually a horrible question because the goal is far too small for you to identify. There are literally a million things you could do to increase your profits by 10%. Now, if you wanted to ask, how could you increase your profits by 10 times? That is a helpful question that can actually allow you to eliminate a lot of options and focus on the one or maybe two things that would actually allow you to do that. And it might seem impossible to do, but just the practice of identifying what's most important allows you to get clarity and focus for the business. And one of the things for me that I've struggled with is feeling like I have so many things to do at any given time, and trying to balance, like, all right, what's going to be the most impactful thing for me to do in this moment? And I've taken to, particularly in the summer when it's not 10 degrees out like it is now, I would midday take a walk and just let it all sit and simmer, and try and come back with some ounce of like, all right, this is the thing I should focus on now. And it got to the point, honestly, where I booked an ADHD consultation, and I thought to myself, because my whole family, both my parents, all three of my brothers are all diagnosed. I don't think they'll mind sharing that. And I'm like, what are the odds that I'm the only one who's not? I think I'm just pretty high functioning. And so I just haven't done the time. My wife would be like, yeah, Robert, you definitely need to go. But another concept that I pulled from the book was this notion of decision fatigue. And so it's when you have so many decisions to make that it burns you out. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And I would get into these moments where I'm like, again, like, I know I have so much to do. I know I'm capable of doing it all, but what should be done. So just this notion of using an incredibly large goal to focus your efforts. And I think part of that goes to is also just accepting like wanting what you want is kind of the way they frame it as the concept. And I think that one of the things that I've struggled with because I've grown up in this culture of the trades where it's very much a gritty, like you work hard, you bust your ass, and that's how you have success, is to offload any of that feels, it's interesting. My wife said this because we were talking about the book this weekend too. She's like, it feels like laziness, and that's a thing for me to work on, but because we actually, as part of this, we finally committed to getting a home cleaning service to come because it was just one of those things where it's this literally takes up 6, 8 hours of my life every week. And those hours are incredibly valuable for me to put towards whether it's my business or spending time with my kids, refilling my own cup. And but that was her initial reaction. She was like, I see the logic to it, but there's just something in me that's like, and it's not like we're swimming in wealth at this stage in our lives, anyways. So I think that's one of the counterintuitive concepts that they offer in the book is they have this concept of the four freedoms. And the first, the priority is freedom of time. And the idea is that as an entrepreneur in particular, your time has so much value that you need to prioritize the protection of that time. In doing so, in really focusing your time, focusing your attention, you're going to be able to drastically increase your potential to make money. That is the second freedom, freedom of money, and also foster deeper relationships. Freedom of relationship is the third. And then as you master those three freedoms, as you attain those three freedoms, I think this was framed as like just sort of an observation that Dan has had is like, you'll notice that folks who have achieved in these areas all of a sudden have a greater sense of purpose and they really commit to a cause. So the fourth freedom is freedom of purpose. And what's amazing is so much of what this book is doing is just allowing me to commit to things that I've wanted to do, like this podcast. And I've just hesitated. And I think a lot of it is the 2x thinking, as they would put it. It's like, I've got to get to a certain level in my business before I can really think about doing these big things. I've got to have just a little bit of, better traction. I've got to hit this revenue target before I can justify it. And ultimately, what this book has taught me is flip that on its head. Go for the big thing, and you'll be amazed how much easier it is to make that incremental progress. Not, oh, I'm sorry, that's a miss. Not incremental. You'll make the giant leaps in your life and in your business by just accepting you don't have to do the little grindy 2x work.
Right, right. I think you and I were talking about it too, and maybe it goes hand in hand, maybe it doesn't, but you and I share that sort of perfectionism where it's like, okay, we want to plan for success, and so we get bogged down by like, okay, if we want to start a podcast, let's use this as an example. If we want to start a podcast, then we need to first complete step 1, have perfect lighting. Step 2, write out a thorough script. Step 3, plan each and every recording session, and so many things, so many little details that you could allow yourself to sort of be bogged down by, fall under that decision fatigue, and then ultimately move slowly or not move at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you just remove that and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to, in this moment, know that my overall goal is I want to try this podcast, and I want to be there to support roofers that share similar values and need a place to have these ideas and vet these ideas and talk about these fresh perspectives, etc., etc. I can just start in an imperfect way without being chained to these specific rules that I've predetermined for myself that probably aren't even necessary because, like we said at the very beginning, it's going to be an evolving venture.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's just embracing the art of start, letting it be imperfect, and going for that bigger goal.
Yeah. And I think even the way you framed it there is perfect because you said, I want to do this. I want to do this. And there's all of these things you feel you need to do before you can do the thing you want.
Right.
Definitely. I've talked for years about suffering from debilitating perfectionism. Everything has to be perfectly planned out in advance before I can do the thing. And a lot of it is insecurity. Another cool concept from the book, or just from Dan's teachings in general, are the four C's. So these are basically, I don't know what the C's are, but I know what the four C's are. The four C's, yes. So I can't remember what the four C's are. It's like the four C's of entrepreneurialism or something. But the first two are commitment and courage. And he talks about courage is really the first thing you have to get over. Like that's going to facilitate a deeper commitment to the thing you're doing. So yeah, it was, I do already still feel a little bit like, man, I'm really putting myself out here with this podcast, but I'm committing to it. And the idea is through doing this, I'm going to foster greater capability, and the capabilities will breed confidence. So those are the four C's, right? And as I get more confident, then I'm leveling up my skills in this very particular area of the business and just in life. That becomes my core focus, is communicating the value of what we stand for as a company to anyone who comes across these videos, these recordings. And as part of that, I'm focusing, they're big on like the 80-20 rule, right? It's the 20% of your capacity that are going to deliver 80% of the results. And as much as possible in focusing that time to remove that 80%. And that's by getting good folks on your team who enjoy and are very capable at, better than you are, at doing those 80% items that really aren't your core focus or your core capacity.
And it's, specifically talking about this team, surrounding yourself with those smarter than you are, essentially, is exactly what you said. It's a hard thing. It sounds easier, right? The concept sounds easy, like, oh, surround yourself with people who can, master what you're hiring them to do. But it is more difficult, and it's harder said than done, and it's a whole like mindset that you have to employ. It's not just like a check the box thing. It's a whole like shift in your mindset that you have to employ, and be willing to sort of like let go and allow yourself to not be the smartest person in the room. And as a perfectionist, like you just said, I mean, that's a everyday battle, I'm sure, in some
Mm-hmm.
ways.
And it's one of those things where you have to take a leap. Again, going back to just the courage side of things. But
Right.
I mentioned at the beginning that since adopting this shift, I'm seeing things happen in ways that I couldn't have anticipated before. One perfect example is we just committed to on-site implementations for our software rollout. And I went, and Ryan, who's our implementation specialist, went with me. It was our first time meeting in person. It was an incredible experience. The company that we were implementing was so happy to have us there. But as I landed home from the plane and checked my email, I'd received an email from their admin. Her name's Lisa. She's so lovely. And in that email, it was basically just showering praise on Ryan for the job he'd done. And she said, I know that you've got a great team that you're working with, and they really embody what you stand for as a business, which is to foster great relationships with your clients. And I'm like, it literally within weeks of doing this whole let go and trust your people, I'm getting emails like that. Okay, there's something to this. So I've literally said it's the best email I've ever gotten in my life, because it's freeing in a way where I've put so much pressure on myself. Again, going back to that perfectionism. And I think as it relates to the folks we work with in the roofing industry, I always talk about it. There is a bit of a culture, because you think about who is starting these businesses, running these businesses, we're craftsmen, right? Like we love doing things excellently. We love doing things perfectly. We love the details. And it is so, we're almost wired to focus and hone in on every little minute thing. And basically what this philosophy that Dan is providing is saying is that's what's holding you back at the end of the day, is the inability to trust others to be in the position to do just as good, if not better of a job at managing those details, so you can focus on, and you hear this term thrown around all the time, instead of working in the business, working on the business. That's a hard thing. That's a hard transition to make for a lot of folks who are coming from, being the ones who do an excellent job, right? That's a lot of times the motivation for starting the company is like, no one does as good a work as I do. Well, if that's the mindset, you're going to be the one, it's going to be dependent on you for as long as you hold that mindset to be the one doing it, because you're the one who does it great. There are other folks out there who can, and if you can find those people, and there's also a perception that they aren't out there, but they are. If you can find those people, bring them on, get them bought into your vision for the company, that's what's going to free up your ability to grow the business and to move it in directions, do innovative things, do cool things for your business and for your team.
Yes. I mean, you know, if the viewers don't know, I work for you, Robert. So
No, no, no. It's the other way around.
I like that. Yes, you work for me. I run the show over here now. But I completely agree. As you know, I have felt the shift on this end too. And maybe I got lucky. I'm still one of the newer RAES members over here, but I even just having like started at the very beginning, and you know, I'd be happy to give an example. I can think of one right off the top of my head. um you know, at the very beginning, it was a little bit of like, you know, just, Brandy, who are you? And what can you do? And I want to control, like, I want to have say on these particular details because my face is on it. And those are completely understandable feelings. Like, anyone who is running a business, I'm sure has had those feelings. And if you don't, like, tell us what your secret is, because it's like hard not to have those feelings. This is your baby. But the moment you sort of shifted and let go and were like, you know what, Brandy, actually, let's, you know, I want to give you the freedom in this space to do
Hmm.
what you think is right and best for us. And it's just bred this sort of like, you know, I'm more bought in, you have more time back, and we're just rolling like this snowball of productivity and engagement and just like enjoyment is rolling,
Hmm.
and it's all stemming from this shift in mindset.
Yeah. And I do, because to me, it's incredibly important that we take into consideration the differences between what we're doing and what folks at roofing companies are doing. But and so I want to acknowledge a lot of times there's also a history of getting burned. And so folks get jaded about trust.
For
I can
sure.
name countless stories growing up because I've been watching it since I was a child, right? The one I always go to is I remember the foreman, he used to throw us batting practice in the backyard. And, you know, it was like, because we ran the company out of our house. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. And then one day he was gone. I was like, it turns out he was stealing gas from the vans. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, it's one thing in the context of you and I to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to trust you to create our content and post on our behalf. But when you have kind of this perception of, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that will take advantage of you. And so one of the things that I found to be really powerful, and even I shared with you when we had that conversation about really me being okay with letting go, is I think so much of it comes down to your job as an owner is to set a standard for what's acceptable
Right.
at the operation and within particular roles at the company. And you have to hold to that standard. If you don't, that's when bad actors can take advantage. And this is one thing that I think is difficult, right? You have owners, as we were saying, who, I mean, the word to use is there can be micromanaging tendencies, right? It's like, I have to get involved in everything. I got to make sure myself personally that everything goes right.
Right.
And so that creates a situation where it's either I'm looking at it and things are going well, or I'm not seeing it and things are not going well. And so now I feel like I need to be everywhere. It's exhausting for the owner. And the other thing is it's not necessary, right? Because if you have clearly documented and communicated standards and you have consequences laid out for what happens if you don't adhere to those standards, that becomes your enforcement. And so that is what frees you up. And yeah, there will be incidences where people fall below those standards. And one of the things is you just have to be quick to recognize when somebody isn't ever going to, whether it's a teachable moment
Right.
or whether it's really like this is just somebody who does not share the same values that we share as an operation. And for that reason, we have to either really build infrastructure around them to protect the company or cut your losses at the end of the day.
Right. I feel like so one of the ways, and I'm glad you pointed that out because for those that do not know, Robert is a roofing expert and I am a roofing zero.
We're going
But
to get you there. We're getting you up on some roofs this year, Brandy. You're in Texas. You're
are
going to be
we?
filing some claims. Let me tell you.
How about the roof of a like Barbie dream house? I can do that maybe. But no, I mean, that's such a great call out because my mind immediately shifts to everyone has the same intentions I do, and everyone has good intentions. Everyone wants to bring their best foot forward, and they don't have the intention to like do as little as possible. It's a bummer that exists, and I'm sure there's reasons we could go into, but sometimes even I forget that that takes place. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's, and it's a very real thing, it's very out there. And so what is the combatant for it? And sort of knowing your standards, knowing, the vision that you are relaying to people, and being consistent with that communication and consistent in communicating those standards is important. And so, when you think of how one can consistently reiterate their standards for their team, what do you think of? What are some of the ways that you've done that for your team?
Yeah. I think that, again, going back to that 80-20 rule from Dan Sullivan's book, is you have to be ready to continually evolve your role in your business. And so I think this is one area that's a struggle, is especially oftentimes owners are the best sellers and they're the biggest revenue generators at the business. So the estimating and the client management and even the project management end up eating so much of the time that to do the higher level work for the business, again, the working on the business, there's just not time for it, right? And so one of the most powerful remedies for that is to eliminate some of that work that eats up time, that eats up attention more than anything. And so I actually had a great conversation with a gentleman. He's running a large company down in Dallas today. And he was saying, I look at my role as I'm a trainer more than anything. And he said, turnover is high. That's just what it is in roofing. And so I know that my job is to bring people in, teach them to be able to be productive on my behalf. And he basically just does that all the time. And so what he's created is, instead of a dependency on him to have to be the one closing the deals, he's taken the knowledge and the standards that he has in his head and he's managed to transfer them into folks who, honestly, he said it, they don't have much experience. They're not roofing experts. And so he's a larger company relative to your typical roofing company. I think that just goes to show how important it is to be able to get out of the weeds, be able to have confidence. And it all comes down to the training and setting the standard. You set the standards from the first moment somebody comes into your organization, because it's so much harder to adjust standards with somebody who's already on. They're like, wait, we've never done this before. Like, what are we
Right,
talking about?
right.
I guess I will throw in a quick pitch. I do see that as the big thing that we're doing here with the on-site implementations and on-site consulting is we're really we're really change agents. We're trying to go in and say, hey, we're here to get your attention for a couple days and really focus and get everyone committed. This is happening.
And the fruits of that labor, I don't even want to call it that because I didn't feel like it was labor. I don't want to define it as that. So I'll say the outcome of that experience was nothing but positive. I mean, just astronomically positive feedback from your client that you got to do that on site for. And it was just really refreshing to see that y'all's values aligned, and
Hmm.
in that way y'all were able to sort of set the framework for, I think, what will be a very great long lasting relationship that is going to evolve as they evolve as a
Yeah.
team.
And as we evolve, I think one of the exciting things too, going back to the book, is one of those four freedoms is freedom of relationships.
Hmm.
And I think when I was prioritizing the monetary side of the business over the time side, I felt like everyone who came across my path who I could potentially sell software to, for instance, I was like, I gotta try. I gotta, and part of me oftentimes would be like, the likelihood here isn't great. Like there's not an alignment in perspective, there's not an alignment in value. And so one of the things when you prioritize your time in the way that this book is encouraged, you kind of get more selective. So the standards are not just for your people in your organization, it's also the standards you hold for your clients. And there's a lesson here too for roofers as well. The ones who know this is, they can qualify on the first call and ask a few questions and know, oh, this lead is not going to be worth my time, and they put that lead down, they say, hey, I can give you a recommendation for somebody else who can get out there faster, but I'm tied up for a couple months. Those are the ones who are able to have more productive business growth because they recognize protecting your time is so vital. But anyways, to get back to the relationship side of things, and another concept from Sullivan's book is transactional versus transformational relationships. And again, the transactional is, well, I'll give you a software license and you'll give me some money.
Right.
But transformational is when you have that alignment and perspective and you share values and you're working towards a shared vision. It's like the most powerful form of win-win formula you can have where we're all working towards the same thing. And this was for us doing this on site the first time we really felt that power of that because everyone feels as though, okay, we're not just here because we're trying to do an exchange of money and services. We're here because we want to accomplish things together.
I feel like this visit was the perfect example of that, the perfect win-win scenario, transformative relationship. Is that what you called it?
Yeah,
Okay.
transformational. Yeah,
Transformational. Okay, I
good enough. We got to let
transform
those perfectionist
transformational.
tendencies go,
I
you know?
know, let it go. But too, I feel like this piece, the relationship, this relationship piece, there's so much to this. I had a mentor back in the day that told me that, it's really your business and you are not defined by the clients you take, but rather the clients that you do not take. And I think that just shows, going back to what you're saying about really investing that time in those that share those values with you. I mean, there's something to be said there.
100%. 100%. It makes business more fun too, honestly. Like it's one of those things. And I think part of the shift for me too was I realized through the conversations that I was having on the RAES side with prospects is when you have that client where there is that chemistry and that alignment, the conversations become fun. They become not about screens and buttons, but really about strategy and goals.
Right.
And oftentimes you're like, oh, you want that? That's similar to this thing that I want to do in my life. And it just takes on a whole new form. And when you're having conversations like that, it's so much more pleasant to be doing business. And I feel like that's kind of an old school style of business. So when we talk about the doubling down on the human side, like we're really trying to save that aspect of modern day business where everything is getting more alienating, everything is getting more, you're talking with a computer interface. Again, going back to the AI things that we mentioned in last episode, but this is where I see us just leaning into. And again, it's the courage of where everyone else is kind of going right. We're going to take a left here, and we're going to just double down on fostering those relationships that we enjoy and that our clients enjoy.
I agree. I mean, we did talk about it last time, and even this past week, I wanted to upgrade I considered upgrading, like, it's just an example, but like my LinkedIn profile. Maybe
Hmm.
I can't say this on the podcast, but I wanted to upgrade one of my profiles, and I was like, let me call someone. Let me just talk to someone and talk through my options and just talk about the differences, talk about, what is going to help me maximize what I want to do for myself or for my business, with someone. I want to partner. And and their phone numbers don't exist, or they like lead to like, disconnected, they're disconnected, and then their chat, you can just tell. I'm like, are you a bot on the other side? Because you're just spitting out like random sentences that are already on your website that are already abstract. And it
Hmm.
was just disheartening because I think that there is that one, like you're saying, that's everywhere. You can sign up and just do, get a piece of software, sign up for a subscription. You can do that anywhere. But if you want a partner and you want to build that relationship, you want someone that's going to grow with you, you want someone that's also growing, and you want that, you you want something on a deeper level. Like this is where it's at.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it also is important because that's become the standard
Mm-hmm.
for us. It's helped me in terms of when we're bringing new folks into the business. I have to feel confident. Again, it goes to, it's not just the standard, but also it helps you evaluate folks in light of those standards. So
Right.
I know for us to be successful, like, we can't be miserable humans who are going to be a drag to be around. If we're going to be going on site to your business and spending a day or two with you, like I was joking with Ryan, our implementation specialist. I was like, could you imagine if we were here and we were just like, just the most miserable people to be around? And people are like, oh, the RAES people are coming today. It's going to be a long one. Or an extra cup of coffee.
Oh my gosh. And but that happens. That happens. I mean, we've all been in that scenario where we're like, these sales folks are coming to the office. Time to like turn on the charm, blah, like
Mm-hmm.
trying to
Mm-hmm.
like just get through this training, whatever it may be. But that was not what you felt during that on-site. Like you said, it was so conversational and it was so engaging. And even Ryan said like there were so many like light bulb moments, and you could just feel that, gosh, I'm gonna come across woo-woo, but you could feel the energy was right.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
It's so true. Yeah, there's something about also just being in the space where business will be being taken place, where it starts to make sense for you as the implementer, right? Now you get a perspective of this is what life is like for the daily. And so it just feels more tangible. It feels like, all right, we can really connect the dots between what we're providing and what you guys need to make this whole thing keep going round.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just like you're understanding your customer. And I don't even want to call them customer. Like it's like more than that. You're understanding your partner on a deeper level than, had they signed up somewhere for a subscription service. Maybe I'm coming across to like raise pushy.
Yeah, you really are pushing it,
I'm
Brandy. Come on
sorry.
now. What did I open up with? You're making a hypocrite out of me here.
No, Robert's looking at me like, "Oh, Brandy, you're straying from the script." I'm just kidding.
That's it. I'm
There
going to
is
move you
there
onto the
is no
sales team, and
script.
I'm going to have to get a different podcast host.
No,
So
I
hope you
mean,
like cold calling.
don't force me to be cold calling. Anyways, I'm just kidding, audience member. I'm not pushing you anywhere. But I am saying what I really appreciate, and I can say this, is I appreciate being able to connect with people on a deeper level, understanding them on a deeper level so that I can help and we can help on a deeper level, and we in turn are better for having learned our customer on a deeper level. I'll just say that. How about that?
I think that's lovely. And I think before you start busting out rate sheets and putting proposals together, we should probably end on that note. I think you've said all there is to say. I thought that was a lovely note to end on, truthfully. And we'll call it a podcast. Yeah. High five.
Yay! High five!